Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. I want to talk about decorating mini albums using Graphic 45's papers. I did recently done one using the Autumn Greetings paper collection, and people have mentioned that I've got a little bit of a style when it comes to decorating the albums, and it seems to only come out when I use the Graphic 45 paper. And I've made some tutorials, and in some I've explained how I do each page decorating, but it seems to follow the same pattern. So I just want to go over it, and maybe next time you make a mini album with Graphic 45, you might take some of these ideas into play. I do have some tutorials on my channel, and I also have some in my Etsy shop using Graphic 45. So let me show you what I've done with this. So this mini album, first of all, let's talk about the size. I made this 8.5 by 7, and I do have a 2.5-inch spine. Wanted to make sure there was enough room for embellishments. Now I did get the chipboard embellishments, but I ended up not using them. I used a lot of the other embellishments. I do wish I had gotten some of the rub-ons, which Graphic 45 has come out with, but I didn't, so it's okay. I still enjoyed using the collection. This cover is different from what I usually do. I used a little bit of mixed media. I painted this background with some stamping ink, made some flowers. It sort of looks like ferns if you get a good close look at it. You could use stamps if you wanted to do that. The reason I did that is the cut aparts, there was only one that was portrait. All the other ones were horizontal, and this book being portraited, it to me lended itself to uh, going up and down. Now again, take a look at some of my other covers and you get some other ideas. I also did use some fabric that I had in my stash and wrapped double layer of chipboard and used that as just some texture on the cover. If I had burlap, I would have used burlap. That would have been a nice touch. I layered a lot of cut aparts, and I did a lot of fussy cutting, especially of these leaves. Now, you know, Graphic 45 lends itself to fussy cutting because they've got so many great details. Also, again, the leaves have dimension to them. I spritzed them down with some water and folded them along the stems, again, to give it a little bit of dimension. Once it dries, it stays nice and uh, shaped the way I want it to be. So that's what I did with the cover. A little, again, a little unusual for me. So what I have is some of um, the decorative paper, the chipboard covered fabric, then red um, patterns and solids, then white, then orange, then the mixed media, and then all of the embellishments. So that's what I did with that. For the cover, let me see if I could put this down a little. For the spine, I layered the green solid and then a pattern, and then this is the only chipboard piece I used, and I used a brad with that. Oh no, I take it back. I added this later. I just wanted something more dimensional on the back. I've noticed that covers don't get scuffed up if you have some dimension. And if you don't want to use chipboard, you could use some enamel dots. I did layer, this actually came from the um, the paper with this embellishment on it. I layered that on white cardstock, and then I've got the green and then the green pattern, which this is a pretty pattern paper. I always get the patterns and solids when I get a Graphic 45 collection because there's so much you can do with it. And as a matter of fact, I sort of wish on this one I got a second set of patterns and solids. This one has 6 signatures. I don't usually do that many, but since I had it with that, I wanted to cover the hidden photo mats with plain paper instead of pattern, but it worked out okay. I was all right with it by the time it was done. But if I had had more solids, I would have used that. Some more about the design. Again, the patterns and solids. This may have come from the back of one of the papers, but you see here, I love using the stripes that usually you'll get with a Graphic 45 collection. I like it to look finished, so what I did is I cut some of the solid, some of the orange solid, just about a 1/16 of an inch. I've got a great Fiskars trimmer, and this covers small, cuts small pieces, so you may see it. There's a solid 1/16 of an inch piece which caps off this striped paper, and I think it just adds a nice touch to it. Let me tell you how many layers are on this piece. So I've got this layer with the plaid, then a white, then a red, then a white, then an orange, then a white, then a brown, and then the pattern paper. Because I use so many layers, what I like to do is sort of cut a frame out of it. For instance, if I were to want to use this piece as one of the layers, I would take a sharp X-Acto. I'm looking for another piece because, to be honest, I'm going to make a card, and I might use that for the card. Oops. We'll use this. So I just cut a frame. I just cut about 1/2 an inch. If I want to use the inside piece, I will use a ruler. And then this is what I would use to put on here, obviously underneath the layers, but you won't see the hole because we'll cover it with other layers. So that is a way that I conserve paper and reduce bulk at the same time. I don't know if you heard that click, but I use some magnets. I fussy cut. So I took this cut apart. It was one of the embellishments, and I traced it on this and cut it out. And then I glued this onto some white paper and just fussy cut around it. So just a sort of a cheater way of getting a couple of layers so I can hide my magnet. Another thing I did, and I don't always do this, but I wanted to, at first I put the plain paper on as a photo mat. Now I just put this on with some ATG, which you may be familiar. It usually comes in a gun like this, or you could use temporary adhesive, just in case the person who gets this might want to have a 4x6 photo instead of a 4x4. What I do is take some scrap chipboard, and so this was cut 4.5 by 4.5. I could have cut a 4x4 piece or even 3/4, and I just took my marker and just sort of traced along the edge, sort of a zigzag pattern. Of course, that was after 2 cups of coffee. So it's not a straight line because I have a hard time drawing a straight line, and it's hard to meet at the edges. I also have 4x6, or this is actually 4.5 by 6.5, so you could put a 4x6 photo. And then, of course, I've got magnets hiding under my paper. Now let's talk about this page. This again is several layers. It's the white base, and then orange, white, and then the cut apart. This page, so I have one of the border strips from the border paper. I cut about not even 1/2 inch, about 3/8 piece of that striped paper. And then when I glued it, I left about a 1/16 of an inch between the pattern paper and the striped paper. And same thing with this border strip. And it just adds a nice put together look. So now on this page, photo mat, nothing exciting with that. On this page, underneath the photo mats, let's see if I can. take that so you can see this piece is glued. We'll move it this way. So I cut the pattern paper and then another little striped paper. And Graphic 45 seems to always have these striped papers. Now, it may not be striped like this. It may be a bigger stripe. I think there was a brown that had a stripe with this collection as well. I ended up using a lot of this. I always think it looks really good. And if you weren't going to put a photo mat here, if you put an element here, like the pumpkin or something, it really finishes off the page nicely. But that is how I did that. And I reversed it. On this page, I have the orange and the white with the pattern paper on top, and then this one I did it reverse. And this page, I've got just a pattern paper, that border strip, and then pattern paper there. And that's how I did that page. I think in this tutorial I show how I cut these pages. I use a tab punch board and a tab punch to make them. And like I said, I wish I had had more of the solids, but you still could put a photo on here and that would look fabulous. This is 4¼ by 6¼ so you could put a border and the photo here, or just a 4 by 6 photo. Nothing fancy about this. I did cut out the cut aparts from the 8 by 8 as well as the 12 by 12 collection. So I used 2 pages, put what actually is on the back right here. I just liked it being a little more solid, especially here. It's holding the pocket closed. So I wanted it to stay closed that way. Now this came from a border strip and it already had this red line in the border strip, but I did cut another one out of paper and then use this border strip on top. Could have used one here, but I didn't. I left the top and the bottom pretty plain. I did use this border strip on the top and used this embellishment to tie it together. So of course these hold the pocket closed. This opens this way. This comes off. It's just a tuck spot. And then over here, this is one of the papers from the 8 by 8 collection with a 1/16 of an inch strip and then the leaf paper. I just thought that was pretty. Nothing fancy schmancy over here. Nothing fancy over here. Now on this one, I glued this onto some white cardstock and then fussy cut around it. Before I glued the white onto the back of the cut apart, I did add magnets, one on each side, and then I put magnets here. This is the border, I'm sorry, this solids. That is one of the green solids or patterns that came with the patterns and solids, sorry. And then that's the green solid. So I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is from the patterns and solids. That's the green pattern, that's another green pattern, and that's a green solid. That opens up. In this case, I put the border strip butting up against the striped paper of the orange. Sometimes I left space, and sometimes I butted it up, and it gives a totally different look. You can see here, first of all, I rounded the corners, and that is a nice look. There is the 1/16 of an inch strip of orange paper with the orange stripe. It looks especially striking because we've got the orange stripe beneath the pumpkins. Orange paper, orange stripe, border strip, and then the pumpkins. The difference is this is from the 12 by 12 collection, and that's from the 8 by 8 collection. but it adds a little bit of interest when you open it. So I had this paper and I just had one sheet, a 12 by 12 sheet. I had some of this. This is the back of this sheet. So to make it a little longer, instead of a 6 by 6 square, it would have been about 6 and an eighth by 6 and an eighth. I added this extra little line. So I cut 2 inches of a 6 by 6 piece and then added some of the orange paper and then some of the stripe of the 8 by 8 pad with the pumpkin. This is open, so you could put a photo here and you have this as sort of part of the image. Still looks striking. Or you could put your photo, or you could put your photo here. I could have put something here, but I just left it blank. Maybe something like this border strip would have been nice on there. Something else I like to do when I'm doing my books is, so I have orange, then red, then green, then I go back to orange, or I might have used brown. And then the other thing I like to do is putting this aside because this was later. So I've got the elements that generally are going portrait. Then I have elements that are landscape. I just try to switch them so you don't have all up and down things and then side to side things. I just try to keep it so it's interesting. On this book, I did something that I usually don't do. I repeated my elements. Page 1, 2, and 3 are the same as 4, 5, and 6, just in reverse. So for instance, here is the half page tag with a uh, side pocket, and that's the same on this page. I know there's other designers that do that, and I thought that was a brilliant idea. So on this page, this will go up. Here's that brown stripe paper with the brown solid, the 1/8 of an inch, which looks really good here because I did add the brown paper underneath this pattern paper, which replicates what's on this cut apart. Some more. In this case, I took that stripe and went across just to add something a little different. And I did that in a couple of places on this grouping. When I put the embellishments in, I do leave them open. So if you put your photo, it's open on the side. So because we have these in here, you don't need any magnets for this. And then that opens like that. In this case, I put this up on dimensionals. I don't always do that, but I liked it better than having a hole in the wreath. I just liked it better. Now you could, did I glue that down? Yeah. You could put a 4 by 6 photo here. This is open enough that you can still do that. More of the hidden pocket pages. And again, lots of layers. Well, this is one, the white, the red, and on the base. I did the red little strip, then the orange. I wanted to brighten it up instead of the red or maroon or whatever color you want to call it. Cut apart, I fussy cut white on it. Not totally nuts about how all this looks. You know, maybe if I took some, did some red lines around that, that probably would help. And if I could do some white lines around that, that would also help. It's just they're all three different, and I like repetition when I'm doing my pages. This is just a cut apart, and then just a piece of red solid. I afterthought, I added this brown to it. I'm not sure I like it just because of the brown and the maroon, but it's okay. There's that maroon stripe, so that helped the orange match with everything. And of course, I've got my circle closures, and I have my flap and signature pocket on the back of the album. I always think that's a great place to add anything you can't put anywhere else in the album. And we already looked at the back, but again, it's the one piece of paper I cut in half, and where it joined, I added this strip. If you don't have a border strip, you could always use ribbon, sort of tuck it around the back of it. That always looks striking as well. I could have used a dangle, but I'm not big on dangles. It takes me as long to make a dangle as it does to make a mini album. Maybe not quite, but you get the idea. But I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Check out some of my other Graphic 45 projects and tutorials, and see if you can apply that to your next mini album. Thank you again and have a fabulous day.